Hello everyone. Just wanted to bring a few thoughts and reflections to you on where we're currently at. It is Saturday the 2nd of May. Yesterday was of course May Day, Walpurgisnacht, Beltane, which is a high holiday in the dark occult calendar. So I did wonder if we were going to get some shenanigans playing out in the mainstream news in a ritualistic fashion, in line with the religious belief systems and the occult practices of these sick bastards that we have presiding over us. All kinds of things have happened before on the 1st of May, or they've been presented to us, including that ridiculous story in 2011 of Osama bin Laden apparently having been taken out by a group of US Navy SEALs at his compound in Pakistan. So they murdered him, but then they buried his body at sea out of respect to his Muslim traditions. So sorry we couldn't get to see the body, but we can take it from them that that's what happened, because they'd never lie to us, right? That was a completely ridiculous story, but it was steeped in ritual and symbolism and all this. So that's why I wondered if some stunt would get pulled on the 1st of May. In terms of where we're at now then, I just wanted to reflect on something that was inspired by listening to a broadcast by the brother Charlie Freak. Charlie has been doing fantastic work for the past few years actually on his YouTube channel Freak Sense TV. He makes videos with his wife Colleen. If you've never checked out any of his work, just look up Freak Sense TV on YouTube. Charlie talks about all kinds of spiritual, metaphysical issues, and he gets into some current stuff as well, with some amazing perspectives. And on a recent show, he had Steve Hughes, the Australian comedian, as a guest. And Steve was, for a brief part of this podcast, considering what goes through the minds of normies, regular members of society who have never thought to apply critical thought to anything. They believe everything they see on the mainstream news. They believe governments are there to help them, and they just want to, what's best for them, looking out for their best interests. And Steve was just trying to get inside the mindset of these people. And I've been giving some thought to that myself. And this is, of course, the vast majority of people in the world. It doesn't really matter what country you're in, the dynamic is going to be roughly the same. I mean, if we're at 5% yet in terms of critically minded free thinkers who don't just take what the mainstream media gives to them, but they apply some scrutiny to it themselves, they do their own research, they come up with their own conclusions, and they take a holistically intelligent approach to all things that are going on. If we're at 5%, in the nation known as the United Kingdom, we'd be doing well. Because I feel probably around 95% of people are stuck in the mainstream mindset. So for these people, they really are going to be buying that there is this horrific, highly contagious virus which came out of China. It was people that eat bats, and through this habit from the wet markets in China, this virus just kind of mutated, and it leapt out of the bats into some Chinese people. And because of air travel, because we all move around the world so freely, and this is clearly a problem, because these Chinese people then got on planes and they went all around the world to different countries, and everywhere they stopped, this virus just sort of came out of them and floated around in the air for a bit. And then all the local people in those countries picked up the virus because it was just, in the air, floating around, waiting for a victim. And it just went up the nostrils and into the mouths of these people and infected them. And, straight away they get ill. That is what the vast majority of people are buying. And of course, they will also be buying that the governments of the world had no idea this was coming. And they all implemented these lockdown plans and instituted social isolation and social distancing and self-isolation and all these measures because they just want to keep us safe. That's all they want. That's why these people get into government, because they're big-hearted, they just care, they just want to help us. So these people, they watch the BBC Evening News every day, and they're like, we got to stay in our houses because the government's told us, and they just want to keep us safe. So we won't contest it, and we won't worry about our freedoms of movement being taken away from us, and the fact that our businesses have had to close, and now we can't make a living. And let's not worry about all the people that are committing suicide because of the desolation, the depression of isolation, of being kept away from others. Let's not worry about all the mental health issues that are going to arise from people being forcibly kept inside their own homes. homes and not being able to socially connect with others. Let's not worry about how this is going to affect our children and not being able to socialise with other children as a part of their essential natural development. Let's not worry about the effect on the economy. Let's not worry about the fact that we're being dictated to and we're being told who we can and can't see, including our own relatives. Let's not worry about the fact that our parents are being sequestered away in quarantine places and hospitals and we're not allowed to go and see them. And in some cases they're dying and we can't go and say goodbye to them. Let's all put masks on our faces. Let's be absolutely terrified of the person next to us in the shop queue, if they're not socially distancing and keeping 2 metres away from us. Let's queue outside in the rain for 45 minutes until somebody on the door tells us we can go in the shop. All this is completely acceptable because there's this killer virus around and it's everywhere. It's just floating around in the air. And if we don't keep 2 metres away from the next person, it will jump from them into our nostrils and affect us and we will die straight away, So let's wear masks because the masks are really good. The virus is like, and it sees the mask and it goes, oh, no, not going near them. They've got a mask. They're safe. I'll go on to the next person. And also, the virus stops at 1.9 metres. Did you know that? That's why, this safe distancing of 2 metres in the supermarket is so effective, because the virus goes, oh, 1.9 metres, yeah. Oh, no, 2 metres, that's my limit. Not going to go any further. No, I'm going to back off. So, 1.9 metres and you're dead. But 2 metres, no, you're good. That's all good. And also, did you know the virus stops at 8 o'clock on a Thursday evening? When everyone's out, clapping for the NHS, like we've been told to by our overlords. The virus it's everywhere, of course. It's in the air, it's floating around, but it sees all these people outside at 8 o'clock on a Thursday, and it goes, oh, no, they're clapping for the NHS. No, I'm going to take 5 minutes off, let them do their thing. And then 5 minutes later, when everyone's gone inside their houses, the virus is like, right, I can go back now. Shh. And it's everywhere. You can't see it. It could strike you any time. Your next door neighbour could give it to you. Your mother could give it to you. That person next to you in the supermarket queue could give it to you. This really is the way that so many people think. And they turn on the BBC Evening News and they think the newscaster is there to tell them the truth. And they believe everything the BBC tells them, despite the fact they've got a provable track record of lying over and over and over again, going back years and years and years and years and years. There are so many cases you could cite where the BBC, and not just them, but all the other mainstream state and corporate-controlled media outlets have lied to us time and time again, and we can show this, and yet people still believe what they're telling them about this. The same thing goes for governments. It's been shown, that so many paedophiles have been a part of the British governmental system, and that politicians have knowingly shielded other paedophiles from public scrutiny. Each political party is infested with them. It's provable. That's before we get into many of these people being Satanists and Freemasons, but that's for another conversation. So we know that the government have been protecting paedophiles, and yet people are still prepared to put their faith in anything that they say and believe it, because they've never thought to question it in their lives, and they really do believe that this world is basically a really nice place. Everything's basically okay. We just get the odd problem every now and again that we need to fix. So right now we've got this virus that's everywhere. It can't be seen, but it's in Russia, it's in New Zealand, it's in Brazil, it's everywhere. And the government is taking really responsible measures to protect us all from it because they just care, So yes, they're trashing the economy. It's a really unfortunate thing, but we've just got to put up with it because it's the only way we can beat this virus. And when we do, we can all go back to normal. We can all go back to living exactly the way we were before, because it was just fine, right? There was nothing wrong with it, nothing needed fixing. Organised society was ticking along just great. So what we probably need is a vaccine, and we know this because the mainstream media has told us and government ministers have told us. That nice man Chris Whitty and that nice man Matt Hancock, who just wants to help us. I mean, the fact that he's got 75% shares in a Dutch vaccine manufacturer is neither here nor there. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. These people just want to help us. And Bill Gates is a lovely guy. He's a billionaire. He's got all that money, but he still cares. He could be retiring on his yacht somewhere, but he just wants to help us. He's a philanthropist. He wants to put great good into the world. Big-hearted Bill. So Bill Gates is going to come up with a vaccine. You know, he's funding all the research into vaccines, and he's working with the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control and the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and so many other organizations, because Bill and, you know, his wife Melinda, they just want to help us. And it won't be long before they come out with a vaccine, and we can all roll up our sleeves, take the vaccine, and it will keep us safe from future strains of this virus. Because, you know, there could be a second or third spike, and it could come back in the autumn. But we'll all be safe if we take Bill's vaccine. And we know this because we've been told by, you know, the mainstream. So what is there to worry about? We can all get back to normal. The economy will just magically recover. The kids can go back to school. They can very quickly catch up on all the stuff they've missed through being off for months, you know. And everyone will just recover and get back to normal. And the track and trace and testing apps that we're all being coerced into taking, you know, nothing to worry about with them. They're just to keep us safe. They're just to let us know if we've been in contact with somebody that's known to have been infected with this deadly virus. And all we have to do then is self-isolate for 2 weeks and we'll be fine and everything can go back to normal. You know, that really is the way so many people think. And it's very difficult for me to get back into that mindset because I've been on the path of looking for truth, and I've been a critically minded truth seeker for the past 10 years. But I have to remember that there was a time prior to 2010 when I used to swallow official government narratives. For instance, when the 9/11 story broke in 2001, I unfortunately swallowed the official line, hook, line and sinker for the first couple of years because I knew no better. And many people are still, most people are still in that state of mind now, and in that state of spirituality and in that state of consciousness. And this is the big obstacle that those of us that know better are up against. And it's very interesting the way the narrative has been inverted. We live in a satanically inverted society where so often, if you want to get to the truth of a matter, you have to do a 180-degree flip, turn it on its head, and then you stand some chance of discovering where the truth lies. Whatever the BBC tells you, some good advice is usually to look in the opposite direction if you're trying to discover the truth. And so what we have is the vast majority of mainstream society are trying to frame things that if those of us that care about the loss of our rights and freedoms should go out to try and protest against them, against the loss of them, if we should decide that we're going to go about our business, we're harming no one, we don't want to put any harm into the world, we don't want to cause any loss, we don't want there to be any injured parties, but we take responsibility for these things. And when we realise we're doing no harm, we have every right in creation to go about our business and freely travel and go about the land. But the way we're being portrayed by so many of these people, aided by the mainstream media, of course, is that we're the irresponsible ones. And because we're not adhering to safe distancing, we actually stand the chance of spreading this virus and causing a second wave of it. When in actual fact, the opposite is the truth. And the vast majority of people who are blindly acquiescing and complying with tyranny and slavery, because this whole virus narrative is being used as an excuse to bring in all kinds of draconian measures, as I've discussed on previous videos. So as to whether there is really a virus or not, I can't say. It appears that the whole thing is a hoax, from what so many medical professionals are still coming forward as whistleblowers and saying viruses are the human body's way of shedding biological matter, cells which have become infected or toxified or poisoned. Is the body's way of getting rid of these harmful toxins by shedding them through the body, through the nearest available exit. That's why we exhibit the symptoms that we do when we get ill, because it's the body's own way of getting rid of what it realizes is no good for it. But it's an entirely personal biological experience. It's your body, it belongs to you, this process is highly personal to you, and it can't be passed on to the next person. It certainly can't be airborne and contagious in the way that we're told this virus is. So that's what so many medical professionals are coming out and saying in challenge to the mainstream narrative here. Now, are people getting ill and dying from something? It would appear that people are dying from something, but I don't know what that is. I really can't say. It's possible that it's exposure to 5G radiation, because we know that 5G installations have been taking place while everyone's been cooped up in their houses under house arrest. Other than that, though, many people seem to think that all we're looking at here is an expression of the common cold or the flu, the influenza. Coronaviruses are a family of viruses, we're told, again by medical professionals, that are very similar in nature to a very bad or extreme cold or the flu. So what we could be seeing is people, particularly elderly people, particularly people with underlying health issues, dying from the flu. Now, this happens every year, unfortunately, and the statistics for the early part of this year, as much data has shown, aren't that different to what they were for this same period in previous years. So it's a fact that people die of influenza every year. But the difference is we don't all go crazy, put masks over our mouths, recoil in horror when somebody passes us in the street and run into oncoming traffic to get away from them, and act completely insanely against all common sense when we're in the supermarket. But people are doing it this year because they've been trained and coerced and conditioned and mind controlled by the government through its mainstream media mouthpieces to act in that way. So the people that are behaving in this way are enabling the taking away of the God-given natural freedoms and rights to movement, freedom of assembly, and the right to go about our business and do whatever we choose, so long as we're causing no harm or loss in creation. And the likes of us who value our freedoms and who understand how natural law works and who understand what rights are having those jeopardized by the vast majority of people who will not take personal responsibility to look into these things, and who believe every word of proven liars, thieves, and criminals. So it's actually a reversal of the situation that they would have you believe. They would make out that the likes of us who are going out, carrying on our business, are putting them at risk, whereas in fact the vast majority of people are putting the rest of us and our freedoms and the freedoms of our children and future generations at risk by enabling tyranny, which is what's coming through our governments. And if anyone really still believes that governments have the say in what goes on in their countries, or that Boris Johnson is running the United Kingdom, or that Justin Trudeau is running Canada, or any other of these world leaders, just have a look at how quickly the vast majority of countries in the world went into their lockdown measures all around the same time, all based around the spring equinox, or 22nd of March, 322, all these magic occult numbers at the same time. Does this not indicate to you, can you not see that these individual governments are not autonomous, they're not independent, they didn't all take these decisions themselves, of their own accord? The directive came down from above, from the groups and the networks and the institutions that control all world governments, as well as all other expressions of organised society. And these governments, with just a few exceptions, a few rogue nations like Belarus, Iceland, Sweden, for whatever reason, didn't go along with the plan, but everybody else did. And they put their countries into lockdown, employed exactly the same methods, the 2-metre social distancing, the isolation, the quarantine, as each other, all at the same time. Does that not indicate to you, can you not see that this proves that these governments are controlled by higher powers and that they're running everything in this reality? And the only way that is going to stop is if enough people face up to the truth of the matter, get streetwise, do some research, take some personal responsibility, realise that rights and freedoms come from creation, they come from what people would call God, the supreme creator, and no man or woman can take those away from you. These are endowed to each free sovereign being in creation. Clearly, we have a long way to go in convincing many people of this, but that is the dynamic that we're facing. You know, a compassionate society would quarantine its most vulnerable people and allow everybody else to go about their business and live freely. And if this were a society where the vast number of people had a deep inner standing of natural law principles, particularly the non-aggression principle of do no harm, then they would be taking personal responsibility for not wanting to pose any kind of danger or threat to others. And if they felt that there was any chance of that happening, they would take the decision themselves not to put themselves in that potentially damaging situation. We may get to that point, or we may not. We have to remain hopeful. I've got a lyric here from the Don McLean song, Vincent. Big hit in the early 70s. I posted this to my Facebook in the week. It came up in a conversation with somebody. And it refers to the likes of us, myself, and the many brothers and sisters that are on the path to trying to disseminate truth and sanity and common sense and balance in this narrative. These lyrics refer to us. Let me just read a few of them out. It really speaks to these times. The lyrics go, "Now I understand what you tried to say to me, and how you suffered for your sanity, and how you tried to set them free. They would not listen. They did not know how. Perhaps they'll listen now." And maybe that day will come. Anyway, this video is not designed to dwell on the negative. I'm through with the doom and gloom. I'm through with the dread coming from both the mainstream media and the truth alternative media, who are just as guilty in certain quarters of spreading doom and gloom and negative outlooks. I'm all about optimism. I'm all about finding hopeful solutions to things. And I want to address a few of these now, because on the video that I did last week, I was putting out a call to action for any experts in the area of law, common law, the Constitution, the Magna Carta, as it applies here in the UK, and basically legal experts who might be in a good position to launch some kind of direct action against the UK government for the great damage that these lockdown restrictions are causing. And there have been 3 events which have happened in the last few days which have actually filled me with quite a bit of optimism. So I want to share these with you now. So the first one comes from the English Democrat group. Now they have a solicitor on their books, or working on their behalf, by the name of Robin Tilbrook. And I'm going to read an excerpt from a press release which was released on the 23rd of April, detailing the action that this group is evidently taking against the British government. So on the 23rd of April, the English Democrats, the English Nationalist Political Party, started a judicial review against the Prime Minister and Health Secretary. We are arguing that the government's lockdown regulations, and by the way, the term lockdown that we're all now so familiar with, comes from the prison industry, referring to what happens to prisoners. Have a think about that. The lockdown regulations are unlawful. Attached is our judicial review protocol letter served in support of the challenge. The government is expected to reply by the 30th of April, which was a couple of days ago. I've no idea if they did. I'll find out in due course. Solicitor Robin Tilbrook, who is the chairman of the English Democrats, said that the lockdown over the coronavirus panic is causing huge damage to our country's economy and also to the traditional rights and freedoms of England. Yes, exactly. At last, people are using this language. This cannot be left unchallenged. So that was some good news. I really hope that goes some places, because there have been some demonstrations, there have been some protests. I know that all over Europe and in various places in the States, people have been taking it to the streets, and they've been making the statement to the government and officials that are looking on that they're not having it anymore. They don't consent to the taking away of their rights and freedoms. The lockdown measures are causing more harm than they do good. More people are actually dying from the consequences of the lockdown measures than are dying from the so-called virus, if there is one. You know, the death toll, the official death figures for the coronavirus, the last time I checked, in the UK at least, were a fraction of 1%. Something like 0.1%, if it was even that. And we've got the whole country just going crazy, being paranoid, being suspicious of each other. The whole economy has ground to a halt. Our entire way of life and our behaviours have completely changed for the sake of a 0.1% death rate. So it really is madness. And so we have the English Democrat action taking place. I was saying about protests and demos, they do send a clear statement that there are a certain proportion of people in the population that can see through the BS and they're not having it anymore. But in terms of actually changing things, they very rarely do, I find. I wouldn't say there's no value to them because they send that message out. But you don't find governments backing down on policy just because a certain number of people took it to the streets. This kind of action that's taking place is probably the only thing that is going to work from the inside, using their own system against them. I'm not saying I have personal faith in the UK legal system, but clearly there are experts out there who are on the side of the people that know how to manipulate and use the system for the benefit of the people. So we need to see more of that. Now the next story is incredible because it was actually reported in the mainstream press. The Daily Express in the UK carried this story on the 1st of May. And it reads, Boris Johnson faces court battle as businessman Simon Dolan argues lockdown is illegal. It goes on, Boris Johnson is facing a legal challenge over the government's decision to impose the UK-wide coronavirus lockdown. A wealthy businessman has launched the legal bid, claiming the coronavirus lockdown will kill more people than it saves. Simon Dolan, whose Jota Aviation Company has been delivering personal protective equipment to the NHS, is seeking a judicial review over the government's emergency measures that he claims restrict people's personal liberty. So I really hope this one is genuine, given that it's been carried in the mainstream media, whereas other activities have not been reported there. We have to hope for now that this is the case, and we have to place some faith in it until we hear otherwise, I guess. The third event worth mentioning, or movement worth mentioning, is one that's known as the Free People Alliance. And there was an open letter to Boris Johnson which this group published on the 28th of April. And it reads, We the undersigned wish to make known our very serious concerns over what is happening to our country. Current governmental actions are causing immense damage to the economy, no shit Sherlock, bringing hardship to millions. Formally, and then it goes through a number of points that it wishes to raise with the government, and the one that I wanted to draw attention to involves our old mate Bill Gates, big-hearted Bill. The document says, formally investigate Bill Gates and the results of his vaccine programs, particularly as Professor Chris Whitty, who has effectively been running the show as the alleged science expert in your absence, seems to have had a lot of dealings with Bill Gates and appears to be pushing Bill Gates's objectives. Well, Matt Hancock is also very much in bed with Bill Gates, it would appear, in terms of business interests as well. So Bill certainly gets around a bit, doesn't he? And one thing that I wish this document had addressed is the fact that Bill Gates's name, this individual who's been wheeled out as an expert in all kinds of health matters and medical issues, despite the fact he's got no training in any of these areas, but we're all required to listen to what he has to say, his name appeared on the flight log of Jeffrey Epstein and his Lolita Express, this private plane that carried various high movers and shakers, individuals in politics and big business and celebrities, to his private island in the Caribbean, which was known to have been a hotbed of child sex trafficking and pedophilia. So Bill Gates is named as having been on that plane. Why is he not being asked about this? Why is this not being raised in the mainstream media? Why are people going to take any kind of advice or any kind of instruction from somebody who is a known associate of child traffickers and paedophiles? Is that not a point worth raising? Another addition to that is the fact that there was this character Boris Nikolic, who was a former medical advisor to Bill Gates, who turns out to have been the executor of Jeffrey Epstein's will. So there's yet another nefarious link connected to Bill Gates, as if we didn't have enough already. So these three movements or measures fill me with some optimism, some hope. They may go somewhere, I really hope they do. But most importantly, it's evidence of action. It's evidence of people that care enough, getting off their asses and doing something and using their expertise, using their skill sets for hopefully some common good. And on that front, I also wanted to mention a court action which is being brought in the United States, dating back to the 26th of February when the document was evidently originally filed, and this is between an individual by the name of Cyrus A. Parsa, who represents a company called the AI Organization. When I first came across this, I was kind of suspicious of what it was, because something calling itself the AI Organization would appear to be extolling the apparent virtues of artificial intelligence and maybe advocating for its application in society. But looking at it further, Cyrus Parsa and the AI Organization are actually opposed to the exponential rollout of artificial intelligence, and they're very concerned about the role that it is going to play in our future lives. I was on a panel on a live stream conference called Event 202 on Thursday evening this week with panelists from all over the world, and we all came from different backgrounds, we all had different knowledge and expertise, and we were bringing that to the table to try to come up with some solutions to the situation that we all find ourselves in. And one of the panelists was Cyrus Parsa, so I was fortunate enough to be sharing information with him and taking part in this conference, and I found him to be, from the interactions I had with him, a very sincere and genuine individual who seems to have some very authentic concerns about where artificial intelligence is going. So in this lawsuit that he's brought, incredible courage being shown here and tenacity. It's the AI Organization, including Cyrus Parsa, and the parties involved in bringing this action include, according to this document, the world's people, victims of persecution, rape, torture, concentration camps, sex, human and organ trafficking, and organ harvesting in China, Hong Kong, America and around the world, not limited to democracy activists and many others. Then the parties that this lawsuit is being brought against include, but aren't limited to, Google as an organisation, Barack Hussein Obama, if that's even his real name, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, James Corney, Andrew McCabe, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. There he is again. We should have made this a drinking contest. Every time Bill Gates' name gets mentioned, you take a swig. You'd be on the floor by now. Anderson Cooper, George Soros. These are all as individuals, and also the companies that they represent are being included in this as well. CNN, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, all these different companies. So this is a landmark legal suit being filed here against all these individuals and corporations. So I'm not sure what progress this has made. I will try and keep a close eye on it, but I wish the best of luck and all the positivity and creation to Cyrus A. Parsa and the AI Organization for these incredible moves that they're taking. So all these things, to my thinking, are reasons to be optimistic. They are reasons to be reminded of the fact that history is being written literally day by day. It's not a done deal. Nothing is cast in stone. And we, as conscious co-creators of our own experienced reality, are allowing the story to unfold by way of the consciousness and the action that we're applying to it. So anything could happen. And clearly the occultists, the evildoers, the dark controllers that believe they're in control of everything and believe they're running the show, have their own ideas as to where they want to take this whole thing. Vaccinations, ID 2020, digital biometrical implants and microchips for everyone, facial recognition in AI-controlled 5G, smart grid, futuristic cities, human settlement zones, Agenda 2030, all this kind of stuff. But there's another side to the story, and that is that these individuals by number are very, very small in the overall population of the world. We, regular everyday folk who are in their crosshairs, we're their victims, we're the ones they want to enslave with all of this technology. We have the numbers on our side, and we are legion in our volume. And it's become very clear to me through the research I've done over the years that these occultists have learnt how to harness energy, vibrational frequencies, magic as they call it, And they've been able to manipulate all these forces of nature to their own ends, according to their own aims. All that we have to do, or enough of us, a critical mass number, is to use those same processes which are open and available to anyone, and they're neutral in their base state. So magic per se is not evil. It's waiting to have the will and the intent of a practitioner applied to it. And the universe is structured so that the forces of nature within it respond to the collective consciousness and the will of people applying their intent to it. So if you've got a large number of would-be evildoers who are putting dark energy into their intent, and they have a goal which is not steeped in benevolence to all of humanity, but the opposite, to enslave and control and dominate them, then the universe will facilitate that. Because these people are all united, they're on the same page, they're applying their will, they're making this statement that this is what they want to achieve, and so that's what comes to pass. But the rest of us, or at least enough of us that stand for truth, freedom, justice, love, could be harnessing these same forces to bring about the kind of results that we want. And I would suggest that's what many of us need to start doing, to overwrite the evil, to overwrite the darkness with a version of reality going into the immediate future that we want to see. So, as I said earlier in the video, I'm all about positivity, I'm all about optimism now. I'm done with the doom and gloom, I'm done with the despair. I've been there, I've come through it. I made this statement of affirmation, declaration to creation, to the universe. I put it on my social media the other day, some of you may have seen it, but it's this notice. And I've put it up all over the house in various places so that these words and the energetic imprint of them can resonate out into creation. Truth, freedom, justice, love. Evil and deceit shall not succeed. The sovereign people of earth will take back their power and live freely. God helps those who help themselves. So you can't just sit around hoping that things will get better. You have to apply some will and some intent and some action to it. But I got sick of going to bed every night and finding certain words and phrases that had been implanted by the mainstream media ringing around my head. So I had the bloody word coronavirus and COVID-19 and pandemic just bashing through my head every time I tried to switch off from the world. And so I made a conscious effort to overwrite these words and phrases with the ones you've got here. So instead of coronavirus, COVID-19 and pandemic, it's truth, freedom, justice, love as a mantra. These are the things that I want to see manifest in the world. This is my personal declaration to the universe of that. People might think this is new agey. You can think what you like. This reality is made up of energy and frequency and vibration. The genius Nikola Tesla said something along those lines. If you want to think about how the universe works, think in terms of vibration, frequency and energy. This is all waiting to be harnessed by us, and it can be shaped and moulded into any kind of result that we wish to see. So this is a statement that is staying with me and is being made as an affirmation every day to creation. I don't really care what anyone thinks of this. If people think this is a load of old nonsense that doesn't work, couldn't really care less, because it's working for me, and this is where I'm putting my intent right now. So many people watching this may want to join me in it. Truth, freedom, justice, love is my new mantra. That's my new intention that I'm setting out there. In terms of where things are going, there may well be some very good news in the coming days. I don't want to say any more on it because there's lots still to be seen in terms of how it's all going to pan out. But if there is some very unexpected, extremely positive news that comes along during the month of May, we shouldn't all be too surprised. So I'll keep that one under wraps for now, again, because I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen on that front myself, but I just wanted to put it on the record there. This week I guested on the Event 202 live stream conference, as I mentioned. That went out on Thursday. It was broadcast online for about 3.5 hours. I've posted the video to it on my YouTube. I'll put the link below, but you can find it elsewhere on the channel if you want to go back and listen to what everyone had to say in that incredible lineup of panelists, people from all over the world contributing. Big shout to Dave Murphy, aka Allegedly Dave, for coming up with the concept for that. Thanks to Shelley and Karen for hosting, and also Robin doing the tech stuff, and a big thanks to Simone for the organisation on that front. Also this week I guested on Billy Ray Valentine's Infinite Fringe podcast. Billy Ray is one of my favourite podcasters. I love the guy's show. He's my brother from another mother in New York, and we did a show that wasn't about the coronavirus. Can you believe it? Other subjects do exist. We got into my novel, The Cause and the Cure, which I put out at the start of the year. Quite a prophetic title, it turns out, in the event. But we did a show just getting into some of the symbolism and some of the layered coding that I've put into the narrative of that book, which I consider to be truth fiction. So watch out for that show. I don't think it's posted yet on the Infinite Fringe podcast site, but as soon as I get the audio to it, it will be on the YouTube as well. So check back in a couple of days if you want to listen back to that one, if you think you would find it refreshing to listen to a show that doesn't go on and on about the coronavirus, 5G, vaccines, or anything else. That's pretty much where I'm at for now. It is Saturday, 2nd of May. I'll do another video in a few days and we'll see how things are panning out. But like I said earlier, no more doom and gloom. As far as I'm concerned, we're writing the story day by day as we go along, and it's all about focusing on positive outcomes now. And I'll keep a close eye on those legal cases that I cited earlier to see where they all go, and I hope we get some more good news in the coming days. Thanks for now, stay safe, and when I say that, I don't mean stay safe from this virus. I mean stay safe from tyranny, stay safe from insanity, stay safe from normies, stay safe from the virus of the mainstream news, and just remember, truth, freedom, justice, love, and rights in creation are the things that are really important in our lives. Catch you again soon.